This just in. Breaking news. Our top stories tonight. First up tonight, Tsoukernik fires back against Matt Kirk, stating the $2 million loan was an unenforceable gambling debt. A reasonable solution to a reasonable situation. Phil Ivey and Dave Ulliott are the newest members of Poker's Hall of Fame. Mike Matt left out in the cold despite winning his own poll. Next up, Isildur's on another sick upswing, up $1.7 million this year, but how long can this heater last? Also tonight, Isildur loses over $300,000 at the poker tables yesterday. Frankly, I'm not sure how long I can keep covering this story. Chris Ferguson is in the lead for Player of the Year heading to World Series of Poker Asia. Our hearts aren't the only thing he's trying to steal. All of this and more tonight on insert convoluted title here. We're going to kick off our stories tonight by talking about the Tsoukernik Matt Kirk loan situation, where he's not repaying Matt Kirk $2 million because it was an unenforceable gambling debt. And look, I don't know what kind of stunt he's trying to pull, but if you're in the poker world and you get loaned money and then you don't pay it back because it was gambling, that's not going to go down very well, and you're not going to make a very good name for yourself in the community. Let's take a look at what actually happened. This recent Las Vegas Review-Journal article shows what went down more specifically. Apparently, around 4:34 a.m., Matt Kirk texted on May 27th, gave you $500K. Then, 30 minutes later, also texted, gave you $1 million. Okay, Tsoukernik replied as the two documents documented the transactions. At 5:46 a.m., so not that much longer, Kirk wrote that he'd had a total of $3 million, and Tsoukernik responded, okay. Alright, so it seems like we're going fine, right? And Matt Kirk actually did a smart thing here. He created some documentation that he was loaning the money to Tsoukernik. Maybe his wording should have been a bit better than gave you. Maybe it should say loaned you. But regardless, he is making some kind of record of these transactions. Then 12 minutes after 5:46, Tsoukernik writes back, not valid, and 2 minutes later typed, zero now. Upon further reading into the article at 5:46, they shook hands just 12 minutes before Leon decided that he was not going to be paying these debts back. You might be asking yourself, what is the defense Leon has here? And there's a quote from his lawyer that sounds pretty lawyery, but basically it says, since the gaming debts that the plaintiff seeks to enforce are not evidenced by a credit instrument at the time the debts were created in the early morning hours of May 27, 2017, then the alleged gaming debts are void and unenforceable and do not give rise to any administrative or civil action. Now, look, I don't know about you guys, but if I owned a casino, I probably wouldn't have outstanding debts I'm not going to pay because they're gambling. I mean, imagine your casino gave out a marker to someone for $500,000 and they lost all the money, and then afterwards said, no, bro, look, it's just an unenforceable debt. We're cool. No, you're not. You owe me $500,000. Just like you owe Matt Kirk this money in this situation. Now, I don't know the exact context, so until it all plays out legally, we're not going to know what happens. But I think it's fairly safe to say that this is not a good move for Leon, and certainly not a good representation of his brand. This does remind me of the popular saying, trust takes years to build and a small loan of $3 million to break forever. Or possibly the saying, the worst thing about being lied to is knowing you're not worth the $2 million. This, of course, also reminds me of the famous Bible saying from Psalm 118:8, it is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in unenforceable gambling debts. So what's going to end up happening here? And the answer is, I don't know. I'm not an attorney. I can't tell you legally what's binding or not, but I can say this is not what you would want attached to your name when you're trying to play higher stakes live or build good relationships or promote your brand. I mean, you should just try and honor these types of things to make yourself look better. Next up, let's talk about the Poker Hall of Fame. There were 10 finalist nominations, and of that, 2 people were picked to enter the Hall of Fame. And the 10 finalists were David Chu, Maury Eskandani, Ted Forrest, Thor Hansen, Phil Ivey, Mike Massow, Max Pescatori, Matt Savage, Huckleberry Seed, and David Devilfish Ulliott. Now, everyone knew Phil Ivey was a stone lock. I mean, he's one of the top 3 or 4 stars we have in poker, so he was getting in every time. The question then after that was who would get the bid, and ultimately it was got by David Devilfish Ulliott, who passed away a couple of years ago and was a legend for playing high stakes live, as well as being a bit of a hustler. Now these selections make sense. I do think though that we're running into a bit of a problem here with the Poker Hall of Fame. Because you can only pick 2 people to enter it, it gets tough when you have years like this where you have one spot completely locked up, and then in future years you're going to have new people that can now enter the Hall of Fame because they've reached the eligible age, making it so that certain players continually get pushed back. And we talked about this a little bit before. David Chu has an impressive resume and yet is not yet in the Poker Hall of Fame despite having a few opportunities to make it. Also, Mike Matusow, someone that is a well-known high-stakes player. And then, of course, you have players that are not maybe on the playing side, but are more on the producing side, like Maury Eskandani. Without him, we wouldn't have a lot of the shows that we have today, and tournament director Matt Savage. So we have a lot of people here, man, and really, realistically, we only have 2 spots. We're going to have a lot of players coming up in a few years. They're going to start to hit 40 as well. We're going to have Antonio Esfandiari in the mix, and it really surprised me to not even see Alan Cunningham on this list of nominations. A bit surprising to me, too. I think it's safe to say that Phil Ivey should have been selected, but what are your thoughts on David Ulliott also being the other pick? Let me know in the comments below who you feel deserved it or should be deserving of it next year. Isildur is back in a big way on PokerStars lately. He's up $1.7 million on the year, with almost all of that coming since May. This is a serious heater. He's been playing 1K, 2K triple draw, 1K, 2K 08, and also $200, $400 PLO, because sometimes the 1K, 2K just doesn't do it for you. He did take a bit of a beating yesterday, but the guy's back on track. He's taken on pretty much every one of those stakes. He's running up a roll. Frankly, I didn't even think we would see this kind of thing from Isildur again because there aren't nearly as many high-stakes games as there once were. One of the best things about Full Tilt Poker was that it didn't have a lot of volume, particularly at mid-stakes, but at high stakes, at the nosebleeds, you had some pretty epic battles that would go down regularly. Well, since it moved over to being only stars that really offers these nosebleed games, we've seen a lot less action at those stakes, and I kind of question if we would see Isildur heaters like we'd ever seen in the past before. Well, apparently he's still got it, and we're going to see this for some time to come. The most interesting play, at least to me, that's been going on is the pot limit Omaha, including this 180k pot he played against Trueteller yesterday, who just casually banged off rivered quads against a higher set. Sometimes you gotta pull off that one-outer if you're trying to take the pot down. The thing with Isildur, though, is the storylines are always the same. Is he going to continue to try and run it up? Is he eventually going to run into a brick wall and lose it all back? Is he paying people back that he owes money? Is this all of his own action? He's ready to go. Could this finally be the moment he's been waiting for in his online poker career since the golden days where he did run up millions of dollars? And I get it, it's not going to be the same as when he lost that 4-point-whatever million to Brian Hastings, but this is still a huge upswing and could be his chance to finally right the ship. Either way, it's going to be interesting, and I'll be watching. Finally tonight, Chris Ferguson is leading the 2017 World Series of Poker Player of the Year race following the series. Now, it's not quite over yet. There is still World Series of Poker Asia, where players can win more points to try and move the ranking, and there are some players pretty close to him. He currently has 898 points in first place, but Ryan Hughes has 876, John Monetti has 865, and John Reisner has 853. So there are some players kind of on his heels, but the question, at least I would ask, are they even going to show up to play World Series of Poker Asia? Maybe you do if you're that close, and you think you can show up and maybe to end up taking it down. But one huge advantage for being in first place coming out of the summer is you get a free buy-in into the World Series of Poker main event over in Asia. So this is a pretty massive advantage for Chris Ferguson. He absolutely will be heading over there to try and gain some more points and get that free buy-in. It's looking more and more likely like he's going to walk away with the title. The most interesting thing to me here is what the picture for the banner will be if he does win. We've never had a winner that actually won without winning a bracelet. As you can see here from the list of past winners, generally speaking, players have won around 2 bracelets when they do win Player of the Year. We got a few people that snuck in there with 1, maybe in years where there weren't as much strong competition for Player of the Year. But in general, we see players winning around a couple of bracelets and something along the lines of $1 million. Well, neither of those things are going to be true here for Chris Ferguson, which really makes this quite the run, and he's certainly been helped out by this change in the Player of the Year formula. Let's just look at the caches that he has for 2017, starting at the beginning of the summer. So as you can see, of course, he does have a ton of caches, and that includes the Colossus for 4K, the Tag Team for 900, and then we just see 2.3, 3.5, 4.6, 4, 1.4, all kinds of small caches, with his only 2 real serious caches being for 150k in the 10k08 and 150k in the 10k 7-card stud. I mean, this is something along the lines of 400 and 450k caches with no bracelets. I don't know if this is what the World Series had in mind with the new Player of the Year system, but it is what it is. And I want to say this too. A lot of people that get upset about Player of the Year or think that it's really important, I want you to take a step back and think about it in its entirety. Is this really bringing in new people for poker? No. And we talked about this on the last video. Is this good for poker or not? If you haven't checked that out, make sure to check it out in the link below, in the description below. But the thing is, it doesn't really end up mattering because it's just a shit show anyway. To try and win Player of the Year, you just have to run super hot in tournaments and hope that the points add up to being number 1. You don't really control almost anything. Yeah, you can play in all the events and you can give it your best, and that's great. Keep up the good work, but that doesn't guarantee you Player of the Year at all. There are many, many players who try and win Player of the Year every year by playing all of the events, and only one person gets to win it. That's not because they're a really good player, even though they might be. It's because they ran hot over that short stretch. So I think we just have to take a step back and be okay with this. I'm not saying that it's a good situation. I'm just saying you got to be okay with it because it is what it is. Anyway, that's going to do it from us here at Poker News Productions. As always, hit that subscribe button and join the team. I'll see you guys again soon.